Numerous times I said this boss is the most difficult boss in the game, and often that's for all the wrong reasons. In addition to attacks that hit multiple times and everyone at once, you also have to contend with additional enemies and devastating damage. In this video, Phantom A, that's me, will break down this boss's code and give you the answer on how to crack it wide open. The heavy drone B-33 is the area boss of Chapter 3's Honey Factory. With the exception of only one of its moves, everything the heavy drone can do has the potential to hit your entire party. First up is the missiles. These missiles do 2 damage on normal mode, 3 damage on hard mode. It can fire 2 missiles or 3, depends on what orange it feels like. And the range of missiles can vary from 1 missile per bug, 1 on one bug and 2 on another, or even 3 on a single bug. This is a pseudo area of effect attack, much like Mother Chopper's hard seeds and spores. But the boss also has a true one in the form of the laser, which hits everyone for 3 damage on normal mode, 4 damage on the hard mode. The block timing is tricky, but one way to focus on when the guard is pressing the A button in sync with the explosions when they pop up, and doing it on the 4th because that's when the damage is dealt to you. B-33 can also launch a delayed missile that targets a random spot in your party. Whether you're on normal mode or hard mode, it will always deal 4 damage. Launching this delayed missile does not consume B-33's turn, so brace for impact. Sometimes you also have to worry about B-boobs being summoned. Their moves, stats, and attributes are identical to B-boobs you find outside of this fight, having numbing honey for 1 damage on normal mode, 2 damage on hard mode, sometimes twice, other times thrice, and the ram hitting for 3 damage on normal mode, 4 damage on hard mode. Alternating these forms with their respective attacks means striking them with a damaging move, whether or not the attack actually hurts them. B-33 can also only summon 1 B-boob at a time. Once B-33's HP falls below 65% of its maximum, its very next turn where it can act will permanently reduce its defense by 1 and increase its attack by 1. It also gains a new attack where one turn it will charge its attack, the second turn it will have itself ram into your whole party. It deals 5 damage on normal mode, 6 damage on hard mode. Now that you know what this machine can do, let's talk about your options. First off, I highly insist that before you come into the Honey Factory, make sure you prepare amply. Bring crispy donuts, succulent platters, spicy bombs, drowsy cakes, anything you can think of. Queen's dinners too if you can get them, and doubly so for medals. Sleep resistance, break, poison medals, strong start, favorite one, super block plus, pebble toss, just about anything that you can feasibly think of. The moment you step into the Honey Factory, you're trapped, and the last thing you want is for this place to be your grave. And a boss with the RNG level of B-33 means that there is no silver bullet strategy that exists. Either it uses an area of effect attack that hits everyone, or an attack that can potentially hit everyone equally, or one bug way harder than everyone else. And taunt doesn't work for the former. What I'm trying to say is you need to be adaptable to win, and that's why I encourage you to have your options open to you. Using V's break skill in the beginning of the fight will make V's hurricane toss hit even harder, thanks to how defense is calculated when it's dropped. Think of it like, say, Hurricane Toss gets an additional +2 attack from the first attack onward. So instead of 2 + 1 + 1 + 1 equaling 5 like it should, it's 3 + 2 + 1 + 1 equaling 7. And if you have Strong Start, equipping it to leave so that you can use Break twice on the first turn is an excellent way to maximize your damage as V follows up. And once B-33's HP falls to 65%, Break will have served its purpose. You can instead also use Burly Bombs if you don't want to use your TP with Leaf, but that's just another option available to you. It just depends on how many items you feel like you really need for healing yourself. By extension, Kabu's Horn also benefits the same way as V's Hurricane Toss does. But be aware that if you have Kabu supplement V's damage, it's likely that you'll reach the threshold for B-33's attack up and defense down status to be triggered more quickly. So I suggest having Kabu on healing duty instead, and using something like, say, Crispy Donuts so that you can continue to slay B-33 with Hurricane Toss for the next few turns. Leaf, however, won't have much of a role beyond support, so you can have him help instead by either relaying turns or using items. In phase 2 of the fight, B-33 will prove to be a nightmare if you're lacking in healing items, but there are some methods available that can help you to at least minimize your costs. For example, using Bubble Shield can prove effective to stopping B-33's charged ram, but you can also just as easily give a bug with Shock Trooper and Agaric Shroom, and then Bubble Shield light the 2 bugs that aren't numbed. Of course, if Leaf has Shock Trooper, you'll have to numb yourself last, but it also means having to TP ahead of time, which we can't really be sure of. Now, if you have plenty of TP, then by all means feel free to ignore this part. After all, I'm sure that there's plenty of you people watching this video that love to use Queen Sinners at every opportunity. But as someone who typically doesn't use Queen Sinners on the regular, it may be worth considering if you don't either. Magic Seeds also may prove to be important here if you let V get knocked out early, as she's the only fighter you have that can attack without TP. There is of course buying them from the workers in the rest area, but there's also a free Magic Seed available in the lower chambers where you fight a Honey Nation. If V goes down, you better have the TP to survive, or you're very much screwed. On one more note, B-Boops are also sometimes summoned to help B-33 fight. If you want to rely on having your front bug equipped with Shock Trooper to sponge numbing honey, they are likely to be hit by it if in the correct stance, and it can be used to potentially block devastating attacks later on. This numbs you for a couple of turns though, so not great for taunt. But it does offer its own set of advantages. We'll have to go over them all later on in the video. On the note of Shock Trooper though, if you want a strategy that can at least work well enough on normal and hard modes, preemptively buying a good 10 Agaric Shrooms to use alongside Shock Trooper, which can be found one room before the mini boss on Honey Nation, can prove to be solid enough. Some suggest Crispy Donuts are relying on Bubble Shield Light and Taunt, but I don't, because remember, area of effect attacks don't care about Kabu's taunt anyway, and you want to slam this boss as hard and fast as possible. Alongside Favorite One, you can easily clear this boss in under 10 turns, and the summoned B-Boop can quickly be dispatched after. If you see the laser happen even once, take the time to use a Succulent Platter, take a Carpaccio or Queen's Dinner if you have access to them. Within reason, of course. If you have a lot of HP, you should be fine anyway. And hey, hopefully it works, sometimes it won't, but it's better than nothing. Sometimes you can't see the charge attack coming, and when you can choose to have Kabu numb himself with an Agaric Shroom instead of having him taunt and Leaf be the one to numb him. Leaf and Sid can just use Bubble Shield Light twice, once on himself and once on V, and well, you save 1 TP. But it's better than being wasteful, right? Other options to wail on this boss can come from Poison Metals. Beating Monster Skull can net you access to the Underground Tavern and Poison Attacker, and even Last Attack if you're brave enough. And Weak Stomach actually hits the Equipper twice if an item is consumed by them that targets both their HP and TP being restored. There's not a lot of methods to fight this boss with this early in the game, but you do have a suitable number of options available to you to work with. And if you see it coming, then yeah, B-33 can potentially be annoying, but not that bad. However, let's say the Heavy Drone B-33 overclocked, and the damage it started doing ended up crossing from high but manageable to downright ridiculous. Let's talk about B-33 in hardest mode and other menu codes like Tough Bugs. It is of my belief that if you come into this fight under these conditions and you aren't aptly prepared, you are completely and utterly deaded in this tree if Elizabeth II wasn't here to stop Mackie from cutting it down. If you come into this fight under these conditions and you are aptly prepared, quite frankly, you are likely still screwed. This is because B-33's fight suffers from hardest mode conditions in a way that actively is detrimental to the game's balance. You're fighting a boss that needs to have V still be alive to fight without consuming TP. It has an additional 2 attack to all of its moves, including its missiles that can all strike a single character for unrealistically high damage for Chapter 3 standards, which isn't even halfway through the freaking game. Forget about the fact that there's a +1 attack bonus gained from dropping below 65 HP from max. It can summon allies with those save ups added to them, and you're locked out of any extra resources, including items that heal your entire party's HP if you did not come with them ahead of time, against a boss that specializes in attacks that hurt your whole party. This fight on the hardest is lopsided against you to such an extreme fault it borders on those Paper Mario 64 difficulty hacks. Except here, you don't have the advantage of having predictable boss AI, especially if you still need super blocking skills to be really sharp to not get overwhelmed. About your only real options here hinge on whether or not you planned ahead and brought items that would make this fight easier on yourself. Favorite One and Agaric Shroom still work pretty well, but what if you didn't have those items? About the most you can do is rely on Shock Trooper and pray that B-33 has mercy on you. And asking that if a machine would be, well, let's just say if you're a comedian, I've heard of worse material to practice your jokes on. With all that being said, there are some ways this fight can still be made a little bit more survivable. Shock Trooper may be unreliable in this fight, but that's still a 60% chance that the bug in the front is getting struck at any given time. Even if it means sacrificing some damage, a B-Boop spawn could still mean having a bug function as a meat shield, sponging some of B-33's missiles and its summon attacks so you have your other 2 bugs focus on items and damage. It's by no means a perfect solution, and it's extremely likely that you'll still be obliterated by lasers and charged rams. But as early in the game as you do fight B-33, I'm afraid you just don't have many other options. Shock barriers allow you to numb yourself manually, but you would rather want TP so that B can strike harder and more consistently over the course of the fight. And shock candy is something you need to come in with ahead of time. I'm not really sure what else I can advise though, so when all else fails though, it's possible for the bot to just not hit anyone if it opts for missiles. Multiple turns in a row. It's rare and entirely reliant on luck, but it technically can happen. The heavy drone B-33 is one boss that demands you know well how metals pair up with each other. So find out which wires connect with each other and be sure to blow this scrap heap up. But you'll have much better odds if you watch this video on the screen right now and grind some berries so that you can head over to Metal Island and make some Queen's Dinners as soon as possible. If you can't do that, well, you better welcome your new robot overlords, and in the meantime, pray to Venus for your salvation. See you later!